flat. We are living in a globalizing world, and basically, what Tom Friedman in his book in 2015 tells us is that we are entering a stage of a level playing field where basically the marketplace is globalizing and competition can come from everywhere. He has a lot of convincing examples to actually substantiate his claim. However, basically there are also limitations in the way that the market is globalizing because of cultural differences, and actually currently also political differences. Japan is in a demographic decline. The population is declining, and outside of Japan, the markets are still growing. Japan is already globalized. They have established business relations with lots of countries outside of Japan. As you can see, a lot of export and import throughout the world. It's an open economy, you would say, but yes, it is open, but it's not as open as the other OECD countries. What you see here is in green is the Japanese statistics versus blue, the rest of the world, and what they did is they looked at the 10 largest public company. Public company being a company has a listing on the Tokyo Stock Exchange, and the 10 largest companies, they compared them with their foreign counterparts. 160 countries in total, and they looked at, okay, so if we compare the revenues of the largest Japanese companies versus their international counterparts, what percentage of the revenues is actually generated within the domestic market, and what percentage is generated outside the domestic market? And in case of the Japanese top 10 companies, that's about 1/3, versus the rest of the world, about half of the revenue is coming outside of the domestic market. Ownership, Japan about 25% versus about half the rest of the world. Assets, it's about 20% versus 40%. And management, the top 6, the CXO, the CEO, the CFO, the CTO, the CMO. So the top 6, basically, Japan is low, but actually other countries are also rather low. So what we see is that yes, Japan is globalizing, but it's not as globalized as the rest of the world.
By the way, what is your message for this slide?
That we are wait. So we are not that globalized yet.
Yeah, but this is nothing different past 10 years, 20 years, right?
Right.
And the next 10 years, they're not going to change. So what is the impact? What is
well, basically, they are. So what the point is, okay, we live in a global world, but we are not that globalized yet. So in order, Japan has still some catching up to do.
Right? Yeah, this is always you and overseas people talking the same way what you said, like Americans are saying the same way, but nothing happened past 10, 20 years. So what's wrong?
Well, I think wrong is not wrong. It's just a choice. But if we look at the demographic development, if we look at the fact that the markets in Japan are shrinking, at least the number of consumers is shrinking. If we look at that, basically the rest of the world is more globalized than Japan. Japan has some catching up to do. They are not that much globalized, but it maybe lies in the line of expectations that Japan will need to globalize, and that means that basically they will have to engage in negotiation with people from outside of Japan, which is not that simple. We look at the next slide. So
my question is, what we should going to do to improve this figure?
or basically actually reap the opportunities that exist outside of Japan. That is the message. I believe that and I believe that a lot of Japanese companies are well aware of that. That if they want to keep on growing, that they have to expand outside of Japan, because that's where the growth lies.
Oh, by the way, I just developed my in-school training material past several years, and I published many books. But looks like not effective for Japanese company. They are not interested in those my concerns. Right? But actually, this is very required for Japanese company. But they much more focus on how to training for the company for globalization. How to training means, okay, you're going to study English, you're going to study. That's it.
Right. So what I feel is that even though everybody, I think that a lot of people are aware of the fact that what's happening in the Japanese market and that it's not growing. Everybody knows that the opportunities lie outside of Japan, but nobody wants to burn himself being the first to actually bring his company outside of Japan, because mistakes are very
This issue we're going to discuss with you for several years in the past, but what is the focal point we should do? Okay, you're talking about to seek opportunity for outside Japan. I understand, but what actually they should go to do? Takashi's company the same.
Right.
Any other company the same. They are talking about the same issues in the past 10 years, past several years. Same thing. They're speaking up, but nothing has changed. What is the message?
That's not true. Nothing. It's not that nothing has changed. I think actually there's quite a few companies that actually took very daring steps to move outside of Japan.
For example, you are trying to say
Kirin.
Uniqlo or something.
Kirin.
Kirin. You mean the Kirin is you mean the Kirin M&A?
Is it yes?
Kirin.
Yeah, Kirin. And Toshiba.
What you mean the failure case?
Those are failure cases.
No, I'm talking about success case. そうなんですよ。お茶取ってお茶中に入っていいかお茶。
Well, okay. Toyota.
Toyota.
Toyota is absolutely.
Do you know the president can speak English very well? I
know.
I didn't know that. I saw video.
No. He's graduated he graduated.
Yeah, but he just speaks Japanese from the case of the Toyota company sued in the States.
Right.
He joined the American news and he speaks out in Japanese. But actually he can speak
he speaks English quite well.
Yeah.
No, not quite well. Very well, actually.
Very well.
But this is very sensitive, right? So he doesn't want to risk of making any misstatement because
this is the same as
period of litigation.
Auto driving technique. They're very much reluctant to speak, to make a presentation in the global level. So they are very reluctant to.
Well, but I mean, America, certainly at that time, there's a very how do you say that? There's a very nice word for litigious, litigation. So actually, they love to sue you, and at that time, they were like mysteriously, miraculously, everybody was having the same problem with his Toyota. That it all of a sudden started to accelerate on the highway, right?
Okay, I understand. One issue is not challenge. Okay? Japanese company not challenge. What is it? What else?
But if you look at the car industry, if you look at if you go to the United States, every other car is a Japanese car there. It's really Japanese cars are as common as American and European cars there. I think that they basically they're the most popular. The Japanese makers are the most popular in the United States. So there are really. I was really impressed with the number of Japanese cars on the American.
I know if you're going to consider for statistics market spread in the States, Japanese car is not so big share in the States.
Really?
No. Not so big. German car is more.
I don't know. Really?
Of course, the Americans are big major companies, the majority of the market share. Yes.
I would be very surprised.
I think so.